you think you won by yourself? What a needlessly arrogant and egotistical thing that is to say.
It really is.
Look, I don't know how much DSA was involved. I wasn't involved in that part of the campaign. But to say that Justice Democrats didn't help that much, no, that's crazy. That's unacceptable.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is allegedly fuming about her left-wing critics in private while she attempts to win them over publicly. And that's according to a new report that came out by Axios. Cenk, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I'm gonna go off a little bit on this story because I've had enough. I think her ego is unbearable. I want her to be productive. I want her to do good things. I want her to run for the Senate seat in New York, but she just keeps taking pot shots at people on her own side, totally gratuitously. Tell us the facts, Anna, and then I'll tell you things I know that are not in the piece.
So this saga regarding defensive military aid to Israel unfortunately continues. Now, her past voting record shows that she has failed to block or vote against sending defensive military weaponry to Israel. And there has been a growing number of people, especially on the left, who don't want to send another dollar to Israel for obvious reasons. Would you send defensive military capabilities to the Nazi regime and what Israel's currently carrying out in Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, the West Bank, Iran? You guys get the picture, okay? These war crimes have gone unchecked, and it's ridiculous to drive the US into further debt in order to bankroll Israel's defensive capabilities. Now, this was something that I called her out for, and she's also been under fire by the DSA in recent months over her support for defensive military weaponry to Israel, or at least in the past, okay? Now, in response, she decided to change her stance on the issue, and I gave her a lot of credit for that. So if they react or respond favorably to the pressure, she deserves credit. Now, on April 1st, she wrote the following: the Israeli government is well able to fund the Iron Dome system, which has proven critical to keep innocent civilians safe from rocket attacks and bombardment. I would argue a great way to keep civilians safe from rocket attacks and bombardment is to stop bombing your neighbors and stop trying to steal their land and territory. That would be the best way to prevent hostility toward your country and its civilians, but nonetheless, let me continue. She further wrote, consistent with my voting record to date, it was not consistent with her voting record to date, I will not support Congress sending more taxpayer dollars and military aid to a government that consistently ignores international law and US law. Her statement about her voting record, again, that's untrue. I've talked about that in detail. I've shown the receipts. If she wants to continue lying about it, fine, as long as in the future she votes the right way on this issue. Nevertheless, her post continues. Netanyahu's allies in the Knesset just approved a $45 billion defense budget, and the prime minister himself also asserted his interest in withdrawing from the MOU with the United States in January. It is fully within their ability to fund Iron Dome and other defensive systems. I hope she doesn't take Netanyahu's word at face value when it comes to wanting to withdraw from the MOU. Are you kidding me? He wants a 20-year MOU as opposed to a 10-year MOU. Finally, she writes, our allies who need our military aid must understand that we will provide it consistent with the Leahy Amendment and the Foreign Assistance Act. Okay, so again, when she stated that she'll no longer support any military aid to Israel, including defensive military aid, gave her credit. I'm not one of those people who's like nitpicking and never satisfied. But according to this Axios piece, she is annoyed by the pressure she's been facing from the left. And in fact, she feels the left is never satisfied. So AOC is hustling to win over left-wing critics. In private, Ocasio-Cortez has fumed about the criticism, believing it's unfair and counterproductive for the progressive movement. In other words, it's unfair that progressive voters are demanding that someone who identifies as a progressive politician carry out progressive policies. Got it. One liberal strategist told Axios that AOC has lamented that the left was not there for her, that they are never pleased. The American people didn't sign up to be your public servant. You signed up to be their public servant. What does that mean? They weren't there for you. You easily get reelected. You're one of the top small dollar fundraisers in the Democratic Party. Like, what do you mean they're not there for you? So she's probably referring to like a small group of people on the far left who nitpick. Yes, they seem to never be satisfied, but those people are not representative of the entirety of the left. And furthermore, AOC has yet to endorse her first chief of staff, Shoykot Chakrabarti, who's running for the House seat that will be left behind by Nancy Pelosi in California. So to be clear, AOC has yet to endorse any race in the month of June. So we'll see what happens with Shoykot Chakrabarti, but I mean, it's just weird how she holds out on these endorsements, and Shoykot is the perfect person for her to endorse, to ensure that someone who is in fact progressive, someone who is actually on the left, serves in that district, in that seat. However, AOC has indicated she believes that some of her early allies on the left have taken too much credit for her upset House victory 8 years ago, and she distanced herself from them over the years. People familiar with the dynamic told Axios. And Cenk, this will be a good opportunity for you to jump in.
Yeah, so look, I'm in the camp of if you come to the right position, bygones be bygones. I will take yes for an answer. True of people on the right, true of people on the left. And so I'm thrilled that she came to the position of not another dollar. Happy to have her there. Look, if it was just that, this thing's long gone. Terrific, let's move on, right?
Guys, when we started TYT, everyone assumed that the hard part would be figuring out their equipment, and that was a challenge for me, or this new thing called YouTube. Not easy, but we did it. But those were the relatively easy parts. The real challenge was playing every role at once. Host, producer, sales team, marketing. I was drowning in jobs I never even knew I signed up for. If you're building a business, you all know the drill. That never-ending to-do list can swallow you whole. What you really need is a partner. Someone who handles the heavy lifting so you can get back to why you started your business in the first place. For us, that partner is Shopify. Need a stunning online store that actually looks like your brand? Shopify gives you hundreds of beautiful pro-built templates. Pick one and make it yours. No coding degree required. God knows I don't have one. Need to get the word out? Shopify plugs you straight into email campaigns and social media tools that help you find customers wherever they hang out. And what about the messy back-end stuff? Tracking inventory, managing returns, shipping across borders. Shopify handles the logistics like the global commerce expert that they are. Everything you need, payments, analytics, day-to-day operations, lives in one place. No more juggling a dozen different services or apps. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/TYT. Go to shopify.com/TYT. That's shopify.com/TYT.
She seems to not understand that there's something else she could do as well. Number one, it would have been great if she led on that, but it's okay, all right? But you need to make the case for us, for our positions. You need to fight for us. I mean, you're supposed to be our representative, and you're not just a random representative. I mean, we're not putting this kind of pressure on Rando Bob in the House. Rando Bob takes corporate money and is never gonna fight for us. But you were supposed to be a progressive champion. So yes, that means that there's a little bit more responsibility on you and a little bit more pressure. Well, time to grow up. You gotta step up and fill those shoes. You can't say, oh, boo-hoo, I can't believe people want me to fight for them. Yes, yes, they do. That was the core promise. So now, again, if I'm the guy who buries all hatchets, right? Like I got kicked out of Just Democrats when after I formed it over some nonsense hatchet job by the at that time like the alt-right finding blogs from decades ago, and AOC fell for that, and a lot of good people fell for that at the time. And you guys saw me at the time. Did I hold a grudge? No, I buried it. And I said, support the candidates anyway, including AOC. And I made a huge deal out of, I'm not important. You've got to support the candidates. Otherwise, they're not going to win. And we're not going to be able to get progressives inside the House to do something. And they did win, and AOC was obviously principal one among them. So now, why am I upset today? Because she goes too far. What is this? You think you won by yourself? What a needlessly arrogant and egotistical thing that is to say.
It really is.
Look, I don't know how much DSA was involved. I wasn't involved in that part of the campaign. But to say that Justice Democrats didn't help that much, no, that's crazy. That's unacceptable. Shoykat Chakrabarti was the head of the Justice Democrats, and then he made a move to go become basically run her campaign, and it made an enormous difference. Corbin Trent was a communications director for Just Democrats. He moved to her campaign as well, made an enormous difference. She owes those two people a world of gratitude. Now, look, Young Turks had a small part in it. We helped form Justice Democrats. You guys are so generous. The audience, not us, the audience raised $2.5 million for all the Justice Democratic candidates, right? And volunteered for AOC and voted for AOC. It's not too much to ask to say, hey, thanks. I appreciate all the wonderful people who made that happen. And by the way, in the beginning, she did say that, right? And guys, this isn't about credit for us. Who cares about us? I buried my ego then. I don't care about my ego now. I just care about the policies. I just care about everybody fighting on the same page for our voters, right? So, but now when you come back and go, oh, the DSA didn't do anything, Just Democrats didn't do anything. Why does it just have to be you? No one ever took credit away from you. No one ever said AOC didn't run a brilliant campaign. She did. Why does Shoykat go all in on AOC? Because he thought she was running a brilliant campaign. So look, these are all my opinions. They're not Shoykat's opinions or Corbyn's or anybody else's opinions. And I'm disconnected from Justice Democrats now. I just can't bear to see that, being left on the record if it's true, as if it's true. Look, Shoykat's in the middle of a tough campaign and he's run a brilliant campaign. He knocked out Nancy Pelosi. He helped out knock out Joe Crowley, number 4 Democrat, with the AOC run. And now Nancy Pelosi's out of the race because she was worried that he was going to be West Coast Mamdani, which I think he is. And so it wasn't just him as to why she retired, but she had 2 letters written, one to stay in the race if Mamdani lost. She was worried that Shoykat is Mamdani, and she used her second letter after Mamdani won, which was to retire. Right now, Shoykat's gaining and is about to take over first place. The primary is in June 2nd. Why on God's green earth hasn't AOC endorsed him? I mean, if you can't endorse that guy, what are you doing? And I'll tell you why. Because she's likes her establishment friends. Let's be honest about it. And her establishment colleagues don't like actual revolutionaries like Shoykat Chakrabarti. Shoykat means it. He would actually fight like hell for positive change in this country. That's why Rebellion PAC endorsed him. That's my PAC, and he's part of the rebellion, and I love it. And I think he's going to win that race no matter who endorses, right? Go help him right now. But we've got to do way better on supporting one another and stop with the credit and, oh no, I don't want them to credit. I want all the credit for myself. How does that help the movement? You don't run a movement with one person. You run a movement together with all of us working together in the same direction.
Yeah, look, the only thing that I want to leave the audience with, and I genuinely think this is super important for everyone to internalize, and it goes beyond this particular story involving Congresswoman AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You should pressure your politicians, period. You don't work for them, they work for you, okay? So if they run on a suite of policies that they renege on, you call them out. Especially if they're on your side, you voted for them, you campaigned for them. Politicians are like everyone else. They respond to incentives and disincentives. So if you have a meek electorate or meek base that constantly provides cover for the failures of these lawmakers, they're gonna continue to fail you. Because why? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? There are so many pressures in Congress to serve the powerful, to serve the elite, to go along, to get along with your colleagues. And if there isn't any outside pressure from the base, then they're going to succumb to the pressures of moneyed interests, of corporations, whatever it is. So just keep that in mind and be very skeptical of any news show that tells you you need to shut your mouth when it comes to the failures of politicians on your side of the aisle. Those are people who are providing cover for the failures of these lawmakers, and that is precisely the reason why we have a pathetic, flaccid, useless Congress today. And again, this isn't just about AOC. This is a general statement about the current political culture in America, which has conditioned voters to be meek and incredibly weak in the face of these politicians failing us time and time again.
And one last thing or two last things. Look, I don't need her to be super far left. I mean,
obviously,
obviously, right? We've had some battles there, and I don't need her to like force every vote. We've had some battles there, and on those battles, we were largely on AOC's side. And so it's not like we're asking her to do extreme things or radical things or everything that we demand. We're just asking you to be there on super important issues like Israel and Gaza and the war. I don't even see her on the war. I'm sure she's done a tweet or two, but when someone's opposed to the war like Ro Khanna, you see them everywhere, right? And I'm not trying to pick and favorites or anything like that. He's just an obvious case because you see him fighting against that, fighting to release the Epstein files, etc. So, but AOC, all of that is also easily remedied. Get out there, roll up your sleeves, go all over media. And you know what? But keep the spite and make sure you don't come on the Young Turks or Breaking Points or whatever. I don't care. Just go everywhere else and fight like hell against this war and against what Israel is doing to this country and what it's doing to Gaza and Lebanon and Iran. And finally, she said, that the left isn't there for her. I think the left has been there for her spectacularly, both when she ran and since then, and she's raised a tremendous amount of money, but she's misunderstanding the dynamic. Maybe if you're a right winger, you could think like that, but on the left and as a progressive, they're not supposed to be there for you, even though they were. You're supposed to be there for them. They elected you to be their representative, and beyond that, their fighter. And that's what your job is, to get out there and fight for them. So if you do it, from my point of view, bygones be bygones. Let's all get on the same team and fight forward together and forget the past. But if you're not gonna do it and then you're gonna blame others for it, it's not a pretty excuse. But again, please go in the right direction and let's just get back on the same team and fight for things that matter.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.